Hi, welcome to Jadekind Gaming. I am Adam, and today I bring you a flip-through and review of the Doctor Who Adventures in Time and Space, or Doctor Who role-playing game as it is now since after this line, 10th Doctor Sourcebook. This is a sourcebook that covers both information on running in the 10th Doctor era, who the people are, like whatever, companions, both short-term and long-term, as well as all of his adventures. Now, when I got this, I'm like, alright, it's a bit thicker than the 9th Doctor Sourcebook, but not so much to cover it. And basically, the thing is, with the adventures, while it is still the bulk of the book, a lot of them are much shorter, than the length of a description and variation. Like in the 9th Doctor Sourcebook, which I got sitting back there, that's why I pointed back there. I was like, I should explain that in case you can't see. It's kind of out of focus. Anyways, in the 9th Doctor, you got like several pages, and there'd be like a whole bunch of changing the desktop theme, which was how they told you to make the adventure seem different, and a whole bunch of things, but it's a little more simplified, a little less options for each adventure. Overall, still more options altogether, because instead of one season, Tennant had 3. I will say, there will be spoilers if you haven't seen all of the 10th Doctor's run, because I don't think I did it when I did the flip-through review of the 9th Doctor's, but I'm just going to flip through most, if not all, of them, and some of it to talk about, hey, look at this cool thing they did, some to show off how beautiful the book is, because that's one of the things, and also to talk a little bit about some of the adventures, because he's probably still my favorite Doctor. For now, he is. Capaldi is giving him a run for his money, but until his run is over, I'm not gonna say, for sure whether I like him more or not, but for doctors that have completed their run, Tennant is definitely my favorite. Anyways, let's take a look. Oh, isn't that a beautiful book? Davros and Cybermen and Daleks and Ood. Okay, maybe the Ood's a little ugly. Anyways, you got that, and I'll point out on the side, when you get all of them, they'll all go together to make like an image on your shelf, which is going to be the thing that sells me on all of them, especially all the classic ones. I'd have very little reason. I don't know those very well, but that spine art is going to sell me on the classic ones eventually. Picture of Tennant, and they break down the chapters. 1 is The Children of Time, the Doctor and his companions. 2 is Playing in His Era. 3 is Torchwood, interesting, fun. 4 is 10th Doctor's Enemies, which is basically some of the enemies taken out of this section and put together here. The ones that you're more likely to use just on their own in your own adventures. You'll see that shortly. And then 5 is his adventures, and it goes for each of these storylines. So whether it's a single episode or a double episode, for each storyline they have a section on it. I read the first 4 chapters completely, and then I skimmed through most of Chapter 5, which is the bulk of the book. Continuing on, introduction and Chapter 1, The Children of Time. You get stats for the 10th Doctor, of course. And then we go into his companions. And they have companions that travel with him, maybe even just seen a lot, but only travel with him briefly. Going on to companions that are in a single episode, that they're seen once. So there's a handful of those. But they were important people, and I guess they put them here in case, because they're the people maybe you're more likely to reuse somehow, or to try to reuse for your own stories. And then we get a section on the Ood. They took the Ood out and put them here because, they're in several of the stories and are of some importance. But we get the Ood here. Then we go over stat sheets for each of the people that were detailed before. before getting a little couple paragraphs and the stat sheet on the 10th Doctor's TARDIS. Anyways, Chapter 2, playing in the 10th Doctor's era, and it just sort of gives ideas for the feeling of the 10th Doctor's era. You know, and how to design sort of story arcs within it. And also, I believe, pointing out that the 10th Doctor's era is identified by these large story arcs, that it was, you know, a big part of it. And then some new alien traits that weren't in the base rules, or gadget traits that weren't in the base rules, that are important for this. Chapter 3 is Torchwood. So this is kind of cool. It goes a little bit in the history of Torchwood, like they do in the show, but pointing out that from when it was, you know, founded, up through, you know, it's basically building up into the Battle of Canary Wharf, where it collapses, and then, you know, sort of is a much smaller organization after that, as with Jack Harkness running, you know, things, and that sort of thing. Essentially, that sort of, you could play during any of these types relationship that it has with Unit, as Torchwood is very similar to Unit, except Unit is it's not affiliated with any nation, and Torchwood is specifically, you know, for the British Empire. But information on putting a team together, and then a couple of stat sheets from the Torchwood TV show. So I thought that was pretty cool to throw them in there. I suppose if they're not going to give Torchwood its own book, which, you know, could go either way, but makes a lot of sense to give us those there. Chapter 4 is the 10th Doctor's enemies. Cybermen, we get Cyber Controller, Cyber King, and Cyber Shade, which is the little animal hybrid thing that they made. Obviously, normal Cybermen are in the core rules, but these are the new types of Cybermen here. With Daleks, we get the Cult of Skaro, the pig slaves that they did back in old New York. Dalek sect hybridized with human. The human Daleks, which were the ones where they look human, but they have Dalek mind in them, that they did, again, old New York, as well as Davros, and Dalek Khan, who's freaking crazy. But they give you those, so important Daleks to add to it. Then we get the Master, / Harold Saxon, and Rassillion as the Time Lords, like clearly his worst enemies. Yeah, kinda. But yeah, so some basic here are important bad guys to make sure you've got. Let's put those right up front and center, so if you're making your own adventures, they're the things that, you know, they put them essentially in a easy-to-find place. If you're running the adventure that they're in back here, yeah, you have to flip back to them, but I think they're accurate in thinking you're more likely to make your own adventures and pull things from this than to rerun the adventures from the shows. But anyways, they go on. Christmas Invasion. You know, we get bad guys, Prime Minister, some NPCs of note, and within that, the synopsis, the continuity section on these is probably my favorite. Not even just as running the game, but just as a fan of Doctor Who. Just some of the things that it points out is so much fun for me. Information on running the game, pacing, and, you know, that kind of thing. How to they always give a change for the desktop theme. In here, it's generally going to be one, you know, change for the desktop theme, and they have a few further adventures here, but typically not a huge number compared to the 9th Doctor Sourcebook. But they give those as far as ways to use it or can follow up on it in your own game. And then they give things that are relevant, like the Scarlax, so the aliens in there. They give information on them and the blood control, blood magic, whatever, it's magic. Science magic! And then the Torchwood beam weapon that destroyed them. They give that information as well. And so that's kind of what you need for that, adventure and how to carry on from it. New Earth, a great one, setting up, with whatever, terrible afflictions to people, and the return of Lady Cassandra. Well, we get, some of the cat people. In the Face of Bo was fun. And they give, again, further adventures, how to carry it on. And they give things like, the TARDIS returns to New Earth 2 years after the events of this adventure. They find a utopia, everyone completely healthy and happy, and docile. And it goes on to, what if this happens? This could be your adventure. And basically it's a simple paragraph, and they give 2 to 3 probably per. Some might only have one, I think. I think a couple of them only had one. But usually 2 to 3 of just, alright, let's assume your players have seen the episodes. Let's make a new story that has, like, a follow-up for the episode, for them to actually play and do different things. And it's not like a full-blown adventure. You're going to have to do some work. But it's an adventure seed. It's an idea for a cool adventure. Anyways, Tooth and Claw, Founding of Torchwood, the werewolf. Give a decent number there. School reunion, of course. It's meet some old friends, and I don't know why K9 isn't in the companion section. Come on. The Girl in the Fireplace, amazing episode. And they mentioned, like, for example, things that would be in continuity. It's going to be here. The SS Madame de Pompadour had a sister ship, the SS Marie Antoinette, which similarly goes awry, forcing its clockwork robots to take the long route through time as well. So, yeah, we know that. See Deep Breath in the 12th Doctor Sourcebook, which also says that while it's not been officially announced, they're clearly planning, once his run is over, to do a Sourcebook for him as well. But essentially, it's just pointing out, from what they know, here is how this adventure ties to other adventures. Other things are as simple as, Madame Renette asks the Doctor the first question. Doctor who? See The Wedding of River Song in the 11th Doctor Sourcebook. They're just pointing out, because it becomes relevant later on, people that ask him. Doctor who, essentially. So things like that get pointed out. We get stats for people. Perhaps someone you would want to bring and actually let see the stars and travel with before her death. Anyways, they go over the time windows and the cool uses of the gadget, as well as the idea, one of the further adventures. Time windows are such a beautiful piece of technology. You can't help but use them again in your adventures. Perhaps time windows become adopted as standard Torchwood procedure for observing historical figures. Park a ship somewhere safe, fire up the windows, and start taking notes. Until someone decides to go a step further and step through. ... That's where your adventure... It's like an adventure seed for just... You're having a Torchwood adventure, and you use the technology from here, and... Shenanigans happen, adventure ensues. And we get, stats for the clockwork robots. Rise of the Cyberman, Age of Steel. Which goes over, of course, into the parallel world. Idiot's Lantern, Possible Planet. We get stats for the Beast. Whatever. Love and Monsters. Awesome story. Awesome episode. I love the way that it is told. And just the break from the typical episode. It just because it feels different. That made it a lot of fun. But yeah, just the idea, that'd be another cool character to pull later on and have him have another story with the Doctor. Elton, yeah. Fear her. So we get the little imaginary, imagination thing. And here's one. It's 3 pages. The entirety of this episode's information, that's the next one. So 3 pages. You get your synopsis, which they do. They still give a full synopsis of each episode. and you get 2 dots for further adventures. One, whatever, a little paragraph on running the adventure with an extra on ionic energy sculpting, which is how they did the shenanigans. Or I don't know, there was another paragraph up here for running the adventure. But it's very simple. Some of them are very simple. How they give things. Army of Ghosts and Doomsday. Oh, I cried so much. But they give you the information that you need on this, and some of the dimensional transporters, useful things, the magnet clamps, the magnet things, great. Runaway Bride, which of course introduced Donna Noble before she left, and we got Martha. Jadoon Troopers would be a great thing to bring back. We get the Carrionites here, Shakespeare, Gridlock. Very, very fun episode. I loved how much you cared about the characters. And they give you the Macra, which is the big crab things, the vehicle, and a couple of the relevant NPCs. I would have liked some of the others. As much as they're just people. They're just people stuck in vehicles, but I still would have enjoyed, having them here. Daleks in Manhattan. We get, where is that? The Dalek Tommy Guns. That's a great thing. Tallulah, some other NPCs, Lazarus Experiment. We get the weird monster he becomes. 42, where we have the sentient sun. Which one of the things that it pointed out that I hadn't paired together, the star is not the last sentient star the Doctor will meet. See the rings of Akatoon in the 11th Doctor's Ship. Like, oh yeah, that's cool. So essentially the idea that there are at least 2 sentient stars that we've seen here. But we get like the crew, We get the crew for this base, which could be cool for further adventures. Human Nature / the Family of Blood. Kind of creepy. Great for a storytelling standpoint, how much they made this episode seem cool. Yet at the same point, they're setting up for the finale, for the reveal, and making that where that'll make sense. Father of mine, mother of mine, son of mine, daughter of mine each get their stat blocks. And I just have to point out, they don't explain in this episode how he did... How did he trap Daughter of Mine in mirrors? How did he do that? What scientific method of, BS science did he use? They don't tell us. That's magic. They just go ahead and say, whatever, we could just use magic at this point. Really? That always bothers me. Because it is. It's basically just, he uses magic, he magics it to give them their immortality, in bad ways. Blink, of course, an amazing episode. We get the Weeping Angels. Now, why they're not in the enemy section, I don't know. They're certainly one of the ones more likely to be used elsewhere. I mean, they're, as much as they were introduced here. And it actually told me, because part of me, with how important they are, this is the first appearance of the Weeping Angels and shows them weak and powerless, trapped on Earth. But with how iconic they quickly became, I was like, well, were they in Classic? And that tells me no. So I love that information. And then, of course, we get the extra NPCs that weren't, because Sally Sparrow was up in the front. Utopia, so whatever, the end of time. And the sound of drums, Last of the Time Lords. Which, of course, involving the Master means that we get lots of continuity information. Whatever information on the Paradox Machine and the Valiant and etc. The poor people from the end of time that were stuck. Voyage of the Damned, so of course the Titanic. Alonzo. That's such a good feeling when you finally got to say that. And they built that up for a while. It's like, he's got to meet an Alonzo eventually. Anyways, Heavenly Host. Moving on. Partners in Crime. Adipose. You get the Adipose. And some further adventures that you could take with the Adipose. How fun! Powers of Pompeii, where they reference in continuity. Again, continuity is one of the things that I loved the most. There are some familiar faces in Pompeii. Caecilius, whatever, I can't pronounce those names, looks a lot like the 12th Doctor, and one of the Sibyllian sisters has a certain pondy air to her. Coincidence? I do enjoy that they bothered to bring that up. Because, yeah, that episode had two people that returned: Planet of the Ood, Sunterrans, which we get our Sunterran trooper, and a few individuals which have, in addition to what is already there, they get these extra traits. Doctor's Daughter, which, this is a fun one for, fun episode, just because it's that almost twist of finding out what's really going on. So it was a fun one for there, and while she is in the companion section earlier, again, another great character to involve in your own stories, because she clearly runs off at the end, and then we don't see anything from her. So that would just be a great thing to pull back in your own stories and say, well, now we have authority to say what happens, because the show hasn't. And of course, the Haith, the Hath, whatever, the fish people. Unicorn and the Wasp. I found a weird one. But whatever, we get our NPCs from it. Silence in the Library, Forest of the Dead. Ooh, that was a good one. Nice, creepy. Of course, the introduction to River Song, which is amazing, and does mean we get a little bit of continuity where she mentions adventures that we actually see later. So that was great. What are the Vast Narada creepy enemy, and it gives some information on how to use the Vast Narada as an enemy, because, they have, essentially because, and it points out here, whatever, they have variable values, but essentially almost the idea, how to handle the Vast Narada. Treat them exactly as they are here, a force of nature that once they've taken over a host can at least be negotiated with. So essentially almost the idea of, they're statted, but they're, as much as they're a creature, an entity, they're also almost an environment effect because of the way they work. A couple of interesting people that have some NPCs. We get Midnight, which is that bus episode, which I'm trying to think. It's like that one. No, it's like one or two of these they give in the running the adventure. They just begin with, "This is a difficult one to run." One of them was one of the ones that just doesn't happen in chronological order. Can be difficult to run. It's like you have to kind of make some changes in order to practically run it as a game. It works, because the show can obviously do storytelling things that don't work otherwise. Whatever. There's Turn Left. Which is this one? This is a great adventure to run if the Doctor's player isn't present 1 week. Just because it's an adventure with them. So interesting bits about that, and just sort of making adventure based on here. And of course, they're going to give... I just noticed, they don't actually even give a changing the desktop theme. Obviously, you could simply do so. But yeah, essentially the idea of making what would happen if a character wasn't around, and how would previous adventures have gone. And it gives basic information on that. Stolen Earth, Journey's End, going in through large synopsis, a lot of continuity. For example, a lot of characters come back in this. But yeah, running the adventure accumulation, and it breaks it down into different groups, just because obviously this was a huge part of an adventure. And we get the Meta-Crisis Doctor. If you want to run yourself a game in in that alternate Earth universe, which, you know, as much as I've never actually played this game, I read it for, I might play it eventually, and because I love the show, and I love to see what they've done, that would be a tempting situation. And that way you have the stats for that doctor. It's not, the human doctor, the Metacrisis doctor. He's a doctor, but he's human. He's, whatever. That would be a great thing to run an adventure into, a great open door that they left for us to make your own adventures. Then we get the next doctor. You know, we're on to the, you know, the end of the 10th Doctor's run with his single episodes. Planet of the Dead. You get the weird fly people. And speaking of, we get whatever, Waters of Mars, which was gross. And the people involved there. Then, The End of Time, which, even though it's 2 episodes, only has one name, because I think that was just End of Time Part 1 and End of Time Part 2. But again, lots of continuity, lots of running the adventure, information, several NPCs, and further adventures for how you might tie it into things. And then, you get our index. That is the end of the 10th Doctor Sourcebook. So, beautiful book. Fun for just a fan of Doctor Who. As I said, I've not actually played this role-playing game. My players are not necessarily... I could probably get them to play the game at some point. I don't think they'd have any interest in necessarily playing the Doctor or directly with that, but I might do something like, I could probably do something with Torchwood or that kind of thing. Which at that point it's like, would I rather just run another game and use this for information, or do I want to learn the system? But regardless, huge amounts of information. If you ever think, gee, I have friends that they're not totally against Doctor Who, but they've not watched it. Great way to run the, you know, obviously if you run for people that have watched the show, they know at least a solution to any of these adventures that are, you know, put out in here. If they've not watched the show, you know information about the world, and of course the book provides more details to help you run it, that you could run those adventures, and you gotta be able to think on your feet if you're gonna do that, because they're not gonna do the same thing that the people on the show did, which, you know, each little change they make means that things further as the episode progresses will change even more. So even if you're running the adventures, you might start it out the same, and they might give all the information going all the way through, but odds are it's not going to have the same end if they're not, you know, because they don't know what to do in the show, and if they do, then why are you running it? But for more than that, the stuff it gives to pull people and gadgets and other, essentially, show references. It gives references to the show. All those things that you would need to reference the show in your own game, that is the thing that I love so much from here. And it gives information on running in that era and running for those characters and making it sort of have that feel, you know, of being this, you know, this type of this doctor's type of adventures. But more than that, just the people and objects that you can pull to bring reference to it is the thing I find so useful. I find so interesting. And as a fan, the continuity bits that tie it both to future Doctor stuff that's already come out in shows, but, you know, past this Doctor's, past these adventures, is great fun. And stuff that ties it back to the past, especially a lot of things that tie it back to, we haven't seen this villain since the 4th Doctor. Says to me, hey, cool, this was something that returned, that because I don't know the classic era, I've seen very little of the classic era of Doctor Who, it's fun for me to see, hey, that's where this came from, and to know that bit of information. I have great fun with that. And it's a beautiful book with lots of pictures of the Doctor and his companions and all the monsters and all that kind of thing. So that's great fun too. But yeah, so I'll put a link down below where you can find it online or check out your local gaming store. They may have it. Check it out. Have a great day. Thank you for watching. Bye.